Thirst is the world's everlasting companion. Water, like air, is absolutely essential to life. It nurtures life. Water. Irrigation nurtured ancient civilizations in arid regions. In Egypt and along the canals of biblical Babylon, it shaped our thoughts, our laws, our response to life in dry climates much like that of the great Central Valley of California. That valley also knew thirst. Drought in 1863 in a single year destroyed 1 million cattle and a way of life. The valley then turned to dry land grain farming, but drought too often reduced the work of mule and man to zero. Early farmers tried to quench the deep thirst of the valley's immensely fertile soil. They dreamed of holding back winter floods, of a network of canals the length and breadth of the valley, of water for their crops in the long hot summer, of creating almost endless abundance for the people of the valley and of this nation. The dream, after 50 years of building, is now reality. It's the landscape in which we live, the great web of water, the Central Valley Project. Half of the land in the United States is arid, receiving less than 20 inches of rainfall per year. The Great Central Valley of California is a 450-mile basin between the Coast Ranges to the west and the Sierra Nevada to the east. It's really two river valleys formed by the Sacramento River flowing north to south and the San Joaquin flowing south to north. During the 6-month growing season, temperatures reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and the valley has less than an inch of rainfall. Winter, however, brings heavy rain and snow in the north, little in the south. Redding gets as much rain in 3 months as New York City in a year. Bakersfield receives less than the Middle Eastern city of Baghdad, under 6 inches a year. The heavy Sacramento River winter runoffs meet the San Joaquin, form a delta, and flow to the sea. The plan of the Central Valley Project was to capture Sacramento Valley's surplus water and drive it upward, up into the parched San Joaquin Valley. Construction began in 1935 during the Great Depression. For the people who came to build the project, this work was a renewal of pride and personal meaning. The creation of the Great Web of Water has continued for nearly a half-century. Bryant Dam, finished in 1942. Shasta Dam, finished in 1945. Folsom Dam, in 1955. Trinity Dam, 1962. Other facilities, including New Melones Dam, finished in 1979. Plus, 1,430 megawatts of hydroelectric generating capacity to power the project and to help pay the cost. Here's the Central Valley Project today. Over 20 dams and reservoirs to store 14 million acre-feet of water, 4.6 trillion gallons for farm, home, and industry, nearly 1,500 miles of canals, conduits, and tunnels, more than 300 pumping plants to carry water to the valley. Parallel to the CVP system is the California State Water Project, carrying its own water through the San Joaquin Valley into Southern California. The CVP serves more than 300 water districts, cities, and power agencies. Water and power sales pay all of the annual operating, maintenance, and replacement costs of the project. Project users will also repay 85% of the capital construction cost. The other 15% is credited to flood control and other benefits to the general public. This is how the project works. As long as the soil remains dry in the fall, land leveling and other chores like pruning continue into winter months. The coming of the annual rains is unpredictable. Meanwhile, the northern mountains wait for boiling tropical storms from the Pacific and the huge cold air masses from Alaska to meet and clash overhead. Torrential rains will follow. Storage reservoirs like Lake Shasta are ready, drawn down far below peak levels to contain potential floodwaters. The bared banks also indicate how much water the CBP hopes to store for use in the next long, hot summer. Recreation is incidental to the CBP's authorized functions: water supply, electric power, flood control.
Okay.
But millions enjoy the lakes year-round. The great web of water is instrumented like a spaceship. As the winds whip from the northwest, promising rain, data flows from the lakes and dams, the mountains and the rivers to the Bureau of Reclamation's Mid-Pacific Regional Headquarters in Sacramento. Here, the operations staff decides when to hold in check billions of gallons of rainfall and when to move water hundreds of miles from its source to areas of need. The first rains, though they drive boaters away, hardly seem enough to raise the level of Lake Shasta 100 feet to its 4.5 million acre-foot capacity. Soon, however, day-long downpours of 6, 10, 12 inches are falling. In the vast watershed, billions of drops are gathered to become the juice of next summer's orange, an infinitesimal charge of electricity, the sweat on some workman's brow somewhere in the Great Valley, somewhere in the nation. While the lakes are filling, salmon and steelhead trout arrive from the ocean for spawning. At Keswick Dam, their elevator and truck are waiting. Water, released from partly filled reservoirs for these important sport and commercial fish, covers downstream spawning beds. Where passage is blocked to the upper river, thousands go to a hatchery for artificial breeding. Others go into special man-made channels to spawn naturally. In very wet years, room is made in the lakes for floodwaters still coming off the watershed. Stabilization of the winter rivers cuts flood damage in the valleys below. By early spring, the rains have usually tapered off. With flood danger passing, the rising lakes are now storing water for summer use. In the valley, the farmers prepare their vines and orchards. A reliable supply of irrigation water and the warm valley sun assure them of an abundant growing season. Spring warmth creeps up the northern mountains, melting the snow that helps fill the reservoirs. Flowing freely at last, the water reawakens the wildflowers and blossoms that signal that the earth is stirring, ready for another season of change, growth, and abundance. Planting begins in the valley. Soon, billions of seeds are in the damp and warming soil, and the farmer waits for the annual miracle that feeds and clothes the world. By the time the sprouts appear, the rains have ended. The soil is drying up. In the north, the CBP lakes are as full as they're going to be this year. The gathering of the waters is complete. The spreading of the waters through the Great Web can now begin. The Shasta Trinity Division stores most of the CBP water. Water moves from Claringle Lake to Lewiston Lake, then by tunnel to Whiskeytown Lake. Then through a similar tunnel to Keswick Reservoir. From Shasta Lake, water is also released into Keswick. Just below Keswick Dam on the Sacramento River, the city of Redding is a customer for CBP water and electricity. Growing populations along the Sacramento receive an extra benefit from irrigation water now moving downstream. It keeps the river in full flow to help meet health and recreation needs during the long, hot summer. "27 miles below Redding, the Red Bluff Diversion Dam cuts out a share of the water for the Sacramento Canals Unit. At this point, the Corning Pumping Station and canal provide irrigation to high levels of the Sacramento Valley. The same diversion also supplies the man-made spawning channels, which provide a birthplace and nursery for young king salmon. They'll swim to the ocean, grow, and return here to spawn. The Tehama-Colusa Canal brings irrigation water more than 110 miles to 200,000 acres. Water goes through pipelines built as part of the project. Farmers pay for the pipelines as well as for the water itself. Ample water changes farming. This hayfield, once almost dry, is now planted with young fruit trees and beans. Beans provide income for the farmer and nitrogen for the growing trees. After CVP water reached this district, crop value per acre multiplied 5 times. Cecile Kramer, whose grandfather was an irrigation pioneer, tells the story.
My mother tells of him saying as they would drive along with the horse team, someday they'll find a crop that will grow here. Someday they'll find a crop. And now I've lived long enough to see that come true. South of Willows, there are rice fields, and they're very, very productive. The soil is improved, and now they can even rotate to other crops. West of Willows had always been dry farming. As soon as the water came from that TC Canal to that Kanawha Irrigation District, I couldn't believe the change that came over that area just overnight. There was corn 12, 15 feet high. There were sugar beets, onion seed, we're seeing sunflower seeds. Last year they had some of the most beautiful sunflowers I've ever seen in my life. The whole pattern of cropping changed, and the farming became so intensified, and the way of life has changed.
That changed lifestyle includes seeding rice from the air. It also includes a future for new generations and wealth for the nation. Stacy Hansen and his father, Keith Hansen.
I'll do it. Without the water on this land, there is no future for my generation or generations after that.
We take this water and we turn that into wealth that's spread throughout the United States for everyone's benefit.
The Sacramento Valley is the world's leading grower of medium grain rice, an important factor in this country's international balance of payments. The water used here is used again and again in as many ways as a farmer can devise to win his annual gamble with nature. Humans aren't the only water customers. The Pacific Flyway passes over the valley. 8 national refuges grow food to lure millions of birds away from the farmers' cash crops. A 175 miles below Redding, where the Sacramento and American rivers meet, the city of Sacramento illustrates some urban values of the CVP. Nearby Folsom Dam helps control floods on the American River. Folsom Lake is a cool and handy refuge for millions during 100-degree summers. The Sacramento region uses large amounts of CVP energy. Downstream, Nimbus Dam diverts irrigation to nearby food-producing farms, plus cooling water for the region's Rancho Seco nuclear power plant. In addition, the American River, once a summer trickle, is now a string of parks winding through the city. And fed by the steady flow of the rivers, the deep water channel links this inland port with worlds across the sea. The San Joaquin Valley, south of Sacramento, is the major destination of CVP water. The west side is bordered by dry mountains. The east side has many snow-fed rivers coming off the Sierra Nevada. The CVP's New Melones Dam on the Stanislaus River and Friant Dam on the San Joaquin store some of the Sierra runoff. Friant Dam diverts San Joaquin water into 2 canals directly from Millerton Lake. The pressure of 500,000 acre-feet of water is behind the valves that begin the Madeira Canal. Madeira flows north for 36 miles. At the south end of the dam, the Friant-Kern Canal starts its 151-mile meander through 4 counties, Fresno, Tulare, Kings, and Kern, where rainfall is 10 inches or less, yet whose abundance is legendary in agriculture. Bakersfield is the most southerly CVP service area. Most CVP water is delivered to locally organized districts. They distribute water, collect for its uses, repay both CVP and local pipeline costs. Some elected district boards also govern local water management.
9,000 acre-feet plus in Millerton Reservoir, and there's an inflow into the reservoir of about 2,500 acre-feet.
This grower has a problem.
Well, what it's going to cost you without water is a grape crop, which I'm sure the board is aware of this. You just can't grow a crop without water. There's no way.
Is there any possibility of you popping into a canal in some sort of exchange with the irrigation district, and someone can use your water downstream and we'll...
Dr. Winston Strong of the California State University, Fresno, on the great web of water.
To move water to 300, 400, 500 miles from areas that have the water to areas that don't have the water, the politics involved, and the philosophy involved, the engineering involved, it's a miracle. And we're sitting in a miracle. This is a miracle area.
To see the west side of the San Joaquin Valley, we go 200 miles northwest to the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta region. In this tangle of waterways, much of the land is at or below sea level. Levees protect the area from inundation. The Delta Cross Channel shunts surplus Sacramento River water, otherwise headed for the Pacific Ocean, into the Delta. The 48-mile Contra Costa Canal takes water to farms, homes, and factories east of San Francisco. A larger amount will go to the San Joaquin Valley, but first a giant screen blocks the way of migrant fish. They'll be trucked to safety because up ahead is the churning heart of the Central Valley Project, which turns the old dream of lifting water into the San Joaquin Valley into everyday fact. Power from CVP dams comes to Tracy Pumping Plant. The power is used to drive great pumps. The pumps lift the water up this hill 1 mile to the little house at the end of the line. The water moves through 3 buried pipes, each 15 feet wide, starting at the distant pumping station. Now, go back to the pumping plant. The total lift is 197 vertical feet. The horsepower available, 135,000. Beside this road, underground, 34,000 gallons, 144 tons per second, struggle up toward the little house on the hill. The little house on the hill is actually the air exhaust valve of the mammoth system that gives birth to the majestic Delta Mendota Canal. The canal now snakes down the east slope of the Diablo Range, which hasn't a single permanent stream in its 150-mile length. With imported surface water, however, the land produces exuberantly. The Delta Mendota and the state's California Aqueduct run side by side approaching San Luis Reservoir, used jointly by the CVP and the State Water Project. Surplus winter water from the north stored here sustains canal flow in summer. Pacheco Tunnel will carry water to the San Felipe Division, west of the dry Diablos. From O'Neill Forebay, a part of the San Luis complex, the Delta-Mendota Canal swings southeast across the valley to the San Joaquin River. The canal serves 1 million acres of land. At Mendota Pool, 111 miles from Tracy, the east and west sides of the web of water are linked. Northern water replaces that taken from the San Joaquin River by the Madera and Friant Kern canals upstream. This maintains irrigation downstream. The CVP's San Luis Canal leaves O'Neill Forebay and flows south for 102 miles. The canal and the Dos Amigos pumping station are shared operations. The CVP water moves to the Pleasant Valley pumping plant and the Coalinga Canal. The state aqueduct continues south. The CVP also brings vital irrigation water to Westland's Water District, 500,000 acres threatened by falling well levels and alkali salts. Surface irrigation water to flush these salts away is essential first aid for this rich soil. District landowners invest in leveling the land and in on-farm irrigation systems. Most important to the health of the soil, a vast San Luis drain system will carry off the unwanted salts. As a result, choice crops like seed alfalfa replace limited salt-tolerant crops of the past. Higher value crops, grapes, fruit will follow. With CVP water comes federal reclamation law. The water can be used only on small holdings. This produces expanded opportunity for small farmers. Larry Turnquist of Tranquility in the San Joaquin Valley.
Without the Central Valley Project, this farm wouldn't be here. Basically due to the reclamation law that's 78 years old that was enacted in 1902. Presented opportunities for young and new growers as water came to new and developed areas to come in and buy small parcels of land, 160 acres per person. My wife and I own 320 acres. We are probably looking at $1 million to $1.5 million. Now, don't misunderstand, those aren't all my dollars. My banker and I have a very firm understanding as to how much is his and how much are mine. I guess you got to call it a challenge.
When farmers plant, they expect a harvest, and the Central Valley has a tremendous harvest to report. First, that essential crop, more than 8 million acre-feet of rain and snow, delivered by the CVP to nearly 30,000 farms and almost 130,000 people directly engaged in farming. These 3 million irrigated acres grow vast amounts of grain and forage for the beefsteaks, the hamburgers, and the milkshakes of the world. That harvest includes 1/3 of all the tomatoes processed for the nation's salsa, soup, and pizza, and most of the garlic to flavor them. Much of the lettuce in the U.S. salad bowl, and 41% of all its olives. Shaken from the trees, more than 1/4 of the almonds, 1/5 of the walnuts, for the sundaes, cakes, and strudel. Nearly $200 million in oranges and other citrus fruits for the vitamin C, the diet pop, and the eye-opener in the morning. And the largest food harvest of all, the grape. Nearly half of those destined for the nation's table and its bottle come from the fertile union of the valley's sun, soil, and CVP water brought from the mountains. Add to that most of the nectarines, a great share of other stone fruits, almost half of all the cantaloupes. Other big crops, cotton, $500 million worth for the T-shirts of the world, along with nearly $130 million in choice medium grain rice. They help balance our international checkbook. In all, farmers in the CVP service area send across sea, state, and nation nearly $4 billion a year in food and fiber. For the first 40 years of the project, the accumulated total is close to $30 billion. The harvest includes jobs, growing, processing, managing, and moving the great harvest machine. CVP operations generate a $2.5 billion addition to the Valley's economy each year. $1.5 billion of it in wages and other personal income. On top of that, new industry, growing markets for farm-based business, growing markets for local suppliers, and growing markets for manufacturers in other parts of the country, and homes for a growing population. Part of the Valley's harvest is 2 billion kilowatt hours of electric power without burning a drop of oil. And recreation, whether you like it in a crowd or in a quiet cove. Water has also softened the impact on wildlife of man's rapidly changing world. In less than a half century, water has become commonplace where once it was rare. If in making the Great Valley more productive, water has also helped make it more beautiful, more human, then that is a harvest too. Part of the harvest of the great web of water. The Central Valley Project.
The Central Valley Project is a prime example of utilization of California's resources. It's a matter of storing the water in peak runoff periods, using it for hydroelectric power, and bringing it here to the San Joaquin Valley to produce food and fiber for the nation and the nations of the world. It's my lifeblood. Without the water, I'm not in the farming business.